as written by anyone? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like sign, nay. The ayes have it. First item, rezoning requests. So the minutes are approved. A, RR 931, property owner Wanda Lenore and Ray Edward, applicant Wanda Lenore, location 1636 Central Avenue, Somerville, South Carolina 29485. Request zoning change from OI, Office Industrial District, CG, General Commercial District, TMS number 135-16-00-002, total acreage 1.7.
Thank you. Yes, so this is a request to rezone approximately 1.7 acres along Central Avenue from the Office Industrial District to the General Commercial District for the purpose of selling the property commercially. The property is located about, let me pull it up here, about 0.23 miles from the intersection of Orangeburg and Central Avenue. Oops. And that makes this property eligible to be rezoned to the CG district, which does have that requirement that it shall not be located further than 1/4 mile from the nearest major intersection. The property is adjacent to existing general commercial property. Let's see, here's our subject property here, and you'll see general commercial property here, and then some more office institutional property to the east. The property is designated as Village Crossroads by the future land use map, which does support the intent of the general commercial district to provide adequate commercial areas to serve the surrounding residential communities with goods and services. The property falls within the sewer service area of Dorchester County Water and Sewer. While there are sewer lines in the area, of course, any sewer service would need to be coordinated with DCWS, and any improvements would be the responsibility of the developer. Any redevelopment or new development of the site would require review by our technical review committee for compliance with development codes, and any required traffic studies or off-site improvements would also be reviewed at that time. The request to rezone has been evaluated against the comprehensive plan and analyzed to calculate the site characteristics. For this and the reasons stated in the staff report, staff recommends approval.
Okay, did you get any public comment at all?
No, not on this one.
Is there anybody present who would like to speak either for or against the application? Is the applicant here? Is there anything you'd like to say? Could you come up to the front, please? And state your name and address.
I'm Wanda Lenore, and I'm at 9614 North Liberty Meadows Drive in Somerville. And we are just basically rezoning it with all the commercial building around us with collision center and all going beside it, just to offer it for sale eventually, once it's done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do the commissioners have any questions? That's it, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Anybody have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Second, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it, motion passes. Subdivision applications and requests, preliminary plans. One, Legacy Farms, property owner Beezer Homes LLC, applicant Stantec Taylor Reeves, location Orangeburg Road and Mentor Street. Zoning District R2, single-family residential, 72 lots, acreage 38.47, TMS number 128-00-00-071, and 156, 166, and 167. Who has this one?
That would be me. This is a request for preliminary plan approval of a 72-lot subdivision located on these 4 parcels here at the corner of Mentor Street and Orangeburg Road. All 4 parcels total about 33 acres, and they're currently being used for single-family residences and agricultural uses. I believe it was a family farm at one point. The overall plan does indicate that the developer intends to develop as a single phase. And this major subdivision is being developed by right, single-family residential allowance in the R2 zoning district. So this is not a cluster like you have seen. The minimum lot size in the R2 zoning district is 7,500 square feet. The smallest lot in this development is 7,500 square feet, and the largest is over 22,000 square feet. The property is located in the transitional overlay district, and therefore does provide a 40-foot wide buffer along Orangeburg Road, and that is measured from the future right-of-way line as designated in our code. A traffic study was conducted and issued on November 30th, 2023. The required improvements are as follows. A southbound right turn lane with 100 foot of storage should be installed along Orangeburg Road to Mentor Road, and the proposed site access should have one ingress and one egress lane. These improvements are included in the plans, and our transportation department has reviewed and signed off on the plans with the condition that the improvements be substantially complete prior to approval of the final plat. The subdivision will be served with water and sewer by Dorchester County Water and Sewer, and roads within the subdivision are to be dedicated for public maintenance. The applicant received approval for a major modification to allow for the roadway length to exceed the maximum at the October 10th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. Stormwater ponds and existing wetlands will be accommodated on lots owned by the homeowners association. Staff is recommending approval of the preliminary plan with the following conditions to be met prior to final approval, just addressing minor outstanding comments and paying a fee in lieu of planting, although I would like to note that since our staff report was published and sent to you all, that fee in lieu has been paid.
Were there any comments from the public on this one?
No.
Is the applicant here? Is there anyone here that would like to speak either for or against the application? Do the commissioners have any questions of staff?
I have a question.
Sure.
How long is their traffic study good for? I mean, if their traffic study was done in 2023, the odds are that this thing's not going to be done or built till 2026, 2027. And at that point, it puts it 4 or 5 years old. Is there any time limits on those things, that it has to be done within a certain time, or that we have to update it within, if it's so old?
I am not sure that there's an actual time limit to them. I know that Public Works manages the TIA process, and that they will, on older projects, require an updated TIA if the project has sat for a while going through this process, for instance. But I can't say that I'm aware of a definitive time frame for them to be in.
Typically also with the TIA, they project out a certain amount of years. And so if nothing else, developed around it,
That's the problem, is that we all know on Orangeburg Road, the amount of development that's happened out there, that that traffic study is probably not current or
Not as current as it could be.
correct.
Yeah.
And we have issues with traffic over there anyways.
I know I've seen on minor roads, the TIA typically goes out 5, perhaps 7 years.
Yeah.
On major roads, like if it were a feeder road to I-26, it may go out 10 years. But that's typically the timeframes I've seen in those studies, but
But you're talking about the inputs that go into it.
Yeah, I mean, at that time, I mean, the problem is the amount of development we're having right now in our area, the development is outpacing what we're requiring. So when they did this study, yeah, that was probably great. What has happened since? I mean, that's already been 3 years ago at this point, just about. And,
Right.
there's been a lot of development, and, I mean, Somerville's growing by leaps and bounds, and we're kind of threading a needle. We've all known that for a while, the cart before the horse kind of thing, the chicken and the egg. And when we're running off of studies that are sometimes 3, 4, 5 years old and not taking into account what has happened in between that time,
Yeah.
it gives me a little heartburn.
Yeah, we can always ask that they just run an update, you know, it's not doing the whole process over
Correct.
again, if we need to, and if that's something that you all would like to see, that's certainly something that we can go back and request.
I had a question for staff, and we were looking at this Mentor Street. Is there going to be access from Mentor Street to these lots, or is that,
Yes, so, hold on, let me pull it up. So the primary access is from Mentor Street.
okay, and is that a paved road or a dirt road?
Mentors, that portion is paved,
That portion of it, okay.
yes. And it's my understanding that Public Works is intending to pave the other side of Mentor Street.
They'll be making improvements.
Yes.
Right. Public Works is dealing with that, though. Right, I got it.
How about, looks like there's a piece of landlocked property back there. Has any concessions been made to allow for access?
Yeah, so that property is not a part of this development currently, but we did require that they provide an access easement.
It looks like there's,
I see one going to the track with the house on it, but it doesn't touch that IREC property.
I see what you mean. Yeah, that's something we can definitely check.
What were the additional staff comments that need to be resolved?
That's just kind of a blanket statement that we put in there in case we notice things afterwards.
Okay.
But as of right now, all departments have signed off.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions? Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve with conditions of access and whatever else staff needs to put in it.
Okay, we have a motion on the table.
Yeah, I'll second that with those conditions as laid out by staff.
Okay. A motion is second. Any further discussion?
that included the access.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, just making sure.
all right. All in favor? Opposed?
No.
Okay, the ayes have it. 5-1. Okay, item number 2, Enclave at Legend Oaks. Property owner Beach Hill, Somerville LLC, applicant Bowman Consulting, location 1051 Beach Hill Road, Somerville. Zoning District R1, Single-Family Residential District, 48 lots, acreage 310.27, TMS number 160-00-00-026. Is this yours, Kara?
This will be mine. Yeah, so you'll remember this one from last year. This came before you all back in January and then again in February, where you deferred it out of concerns due to stormwater. So it is back before you all now. I'll give you a quick, just brief overview of the development since it is a year that we've seen it. The property is zoned R1, it's single-family residential. They're proposing to do a cluster subdivision. It's located off of Old Beach Hill Road across from Legend Oaks subdivision. And they're looking to do 48 single-family lots on the property. It's primarily wetland, backs up to the Ashley River. They are proposing to donate the large area of wetlands with a highland, it's an old rail bed trail that will be donated to the county as part of their cluster provisions. And they have one point of access. They originally were requesting 2 points of access, but they have limited it. I think DOT maybe wouldn't grant them that second access point. So they do just have the 1 point of access. They also do, because of that, have a long cul-de-sac that exceeds our typical cul-de-sac length. So as part of the plat process, they're also requesting a land development modification in order to be able to do that, which we're considering in this case because they're just stringing along the few high points here on this property. There really is no other way to work a layout on here. Since the February meeting, county staff, the public works staff, reached out to our on-call consultant, Woolpert, to assist in reviewing the plans, particularly with the stormwater. And there was several rounds of comments and back and forth, discussion, revisions. Woolpert is now satisfied that the requirements of our ordinance are being met. Notable changes in plans include raising the road so it's above that 25-year storm, and pond banks above the 100-year storm. They've also brought in some additional grading onto the lots. Because of that, they're also incorporating some retaining walls into certain areas. We are still working through minor comments. In this instance, it's water and sewer related to off-site easements that have to be acquired in order to get the water sewer out to this area, but it's nothing that's holding us up from being able to do this today, and nothing that's going to affect the layout of anything that's being looked at today. So we're recommending a conditional approval with that land development modification rolled into it.
Okay. Did you get any public comment?
No, we did not.
Is the applicant here?
Name is Jim Ducker. I'm with Bowman, and I'm here to answer any questions you have from me on the engineering side.
Okay. Do the commissioners have any questions?
How many of the lots are actually in the flood zone?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Half?
Actually, I think most of them are in, because the requirement is that they've got to be
All of it?
at 19.3. The flood zone 17.3, and you get to 2 feet above that. So their product will afford the finished floors to be at least 19.3.
Go
Are
ahead.
there any considerations for any, WA stops or, I don't know, tide flex or anything like that on any of the storm structures for the ponds, outfalls for the ponds?
The only thing not on the outfall structures, or on the outfall structures, no. We had those discussions with Woolpert.
I had a question. Mr. Decker, is that right?
Ducker, quack, quack.
Mr. Ducker?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I see I believe these are ponds on here. Detention ponds, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And do you intend to release into the wetlands, which
Yes,
is
sir.
pretty common these days?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just kind of wondering where that outflow was going.
Yes, sir.
Looked like it.
So I'm going to bring up a comment about that. We know that the club at Legend Oaks stays underwater when we have a significant amount of rain right now. That water comes in, we've had this conversation in here multiple times. We know how the water comes in via the canal. If we are dumping their water into those wetlands, which feeds into that canal, the roads that are already underwater in the club, which is about half of it currently, is only going to get worse. The county has yet to fix the public side of those roads since the 1,000-year flood. Those roads have been damaged. They've sat there damaged now for what, close to 8 years? They have not been fixed. People can't get in and out of their homes with basically anything over a minor rainfall at this point, in that half the roads are underwater. The water is, it comes up, it's in half the backyards, it does a ton of property damage, and we're saying we're gonna dump more water in there? I've got, that just gives me a lot of heartburn. And two, are you a part of actual Legend Oaks? I don't know if that piece of property is.
No, it's not.
So we probably shouldn't be calling it at Legend Oaks.
It's across the road, isn't it?
Yeah, it's across the road. It's not actually a part of Legend Oaks. And then two, you can't get in and out of there now. You're gonna put more traffic? You sit there for a good 10 to 15 minutes trying to get out of that neighborhood because of all the traffic that has been dumped on 61 from Summers Corner and all the other communities that are getting built. out 61. 61 can't be widened, to my understanding, because it is a historic road. All those oak trees that go down 61, people are gonna be chaining themselves to them not to cut them down. Yet we're gonna dump more traffic and more water in that same little corridor that already has major issues.
How many lots are these, Mr. Ducker?
48.
48?
48.
48, on 300 and how many acres?
Well, it's 300 total acres.
Right.
And I think the high ground is 20 acres.
And so the staff would hopefully tell us that Public Works, which I've worked with them before, and they're not going to tell you yes or give you a thumbs up if they are concerned with any of these issues that I'm hearing about with flooding. Obviously, traffic's bad everywhere, but I imagine they have addressed all of these issues with the folks trying to get this approved, right?
Yeah, Public Works and Wolpert have both signed off as this meeting all their
And stormwater.
requirements. That's stormwater, yeah.
And stormwater.
Yeah, that's part of Public Works.
Are you going to pump the sewer? I guess you're going to pump it up the hill?
The sewer?
Yes, sir.
No, sir, it's gravity. There's a gravity line that over to into Legend Oaks.
Really? I'll be knowing.
I will say this, though, Public Works hasn't addressed the issues in the club yet either. And they are significantly underwater currently.
Maybe the councilman could put some pressure on them, huh?
We've been putting pressure on that councilman for several years.
My concerns with this are the fact that we, unfortunately, if Public Works and staff, if all of staff has, approved it or, and the county's third-party reviewer has approved it, unfortunately, we don't have really any legal leg to stand on. And despite our opinions or beliefs, I personally feel like there's still, an issue with the stormwater side based off of, the existing contours LiDAR that's out there that I've looked at, the flood zone, the floodway that's so close, and looking at the FEMA cross-sections. I do have concerns about it, but again, the county is ultimately responsible for the approval, and, I wish somebody from legal was here, so we could have a conversation.
Question,
Yeah,
question
yes.
for staff. So this is a by right, they're not, it's already zoned for.
It's already
this many-
zoned, that's correct.
This many lots, and it
That's right.
meets the requirements that we have in our ordinance.
That is correct.
So it isn't a whole lot we can do about it.
Correct.
Is this on the riverside of the road or the?
It is.
Yes.
That's the.
It's on the riverside?
That's the fundamental issue, it's on the riverside of the
Yeah.
road.
I literally went over there last year when the flooding took place and was looking particularly at this one. And again, I know they're bringing in fill. I understand that, but the 25-year is not adequate for that road. Those people will be trapped in their homes if we have another rain event like we had.
Well, there's two pieces of that. One was the tailwater condition, which you normally would use, run your hydraulic grade line to see where your road needs to be. But that 16 and a half comes from interpolating from FEMA.
Well, yeah, I understand.
Yeah, I know. I'm really torn on this one because I live in a community that was marginally above a wetland elevation level when it was originally platted out. And in 1994, and all the subsequent FEMA revisions, we now have more and more lots that are in the flood zone that have experienced flooding because the initial conditions and the evaluation of the community vis-a-vis the mean level in the wetland was really, really iffy. And that's where I have an issue with this particular project because my concern is that you build the homes and you're okay now and we get another 25-year storm in 3 years and we find out that 8 or 10 lots have gotten flooded. And then 10 years down the road, we get another 25-year storm, and now we have 20 lots flooded because of the basin's marginal capacity as it currently exists. That is a limited basin in storage capacity, we know that. And that's where I struggle with this, and I realize that you know, there are legal implications on how we can decide on this, but my heart really isn't in this one, to tell you God's honest truth, and I'm an engineer.
You said all the roads are above 16 and a half, though, is that correct?
Yeah, the interpolation was 16.2, but we put it at 16.5, so
Yeah.
that fall in the crown of the road.
I
I
can't,
got 16.31, but no quibbling on them, 10th.
Hundredth of a foot.
I can't read, I read what it says, but I wonder what the elevation of Beach Hill Road is compared to.
Might be able to pull that on your computer, the ones on your computer.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now, so.
Does that have the contours on it? Yeah.
Oh, back up.
So they're 18, Beach Hill Road's got a 18 running basically parallel,
Yeah,
so.
and the finished floor is what?
19.3.
The FEMA, the AC profile is a 17.3, so they have to be 2 feet above.
Is there any way to see what is across the street from them? What those,
Across the, the elevation's much lower because of the 14, the AE, it's a AE 14 because of the control pipes that are there. So it just, yeah.
because I also know
What's
that
most critical?
61 is flooded at the bridge right there, the canal, when you go across, you know where I'm talking about. If you come out of the club, take a left like you're going to Rawlings, there's a little bridge right there. And currently, that bridge, if we get a 25-year rain, is underwater.
Well, yeah, that's why I was gonna
Yeah.
ask for the critical outflow on the project. What the time of concentration is at that outfall for a 25-year storm, and if it's, you know, greater than the time limitation from the modeling, you're gonna have the flooding.
That ditch where that crossing is, is. So, well, there's no they got contours, but they're not labeled there.
Because we know that's how the water comes into the club.
Right.
And what ends up happening is all that water from the river and those wetlands on that side come in under that canal. They flood the retention ponds and the roads in the club because all the storm water is connected to those retention ponds. So all the storm water comes out of the stormwater drains and the retention ponds, which puts all the roads underneath water. Like Silver Cypress Circle, half of it behind the gate back there is under 2 feet of water when it rains.
Looks like the IE is at a 9. And then it goes up from there.
Yeah. See, this is where, if they had flapper valves on their outfalls, you know, at least you wouldn't get the river backing in.
Into their system.
Yeah.
But I think that was the original intent of that original canal. The problem is nothing was ever actually maintained or built
Yeah, they're
correctly.
not clearing the solids.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, it sounds like we have a lot of questions that are more to be answered by the people that are approving this at Public Works. It's more of an engineering question. I'm not an engineer. I know several of you up here are, and the rest of us are citizens. Why don't maybe we should defer, have Public Works come to us and explain this to us, because you're not comfortable.
But
It seems to me, though, you take 300 and something acres that was zoned multifamily, I want to tell you,
I know.
and we now got it down to single family. I think this is a great answer for this property because it's gonna develop, okay? It's gonna develop. So I would say get Public Works in here, explain to us why they think this is good or not good. And then
I'd love
we
to
go
see
from
Public
there.
Works tell us what they're gonna do to protect the existing community.
You can,
that-
they'll be here and you can ask them those questions. I can't answer those questions.
I know you can't. That's what I'm saying. that those
Nobody-
are the
nobody up
questions
here can
I
answer.
think that we need answer before we give an answer on this project.
Okay,
So I'll make that motion to defer.
well, don't we have to vote up or down on this, or can we?
On the
We can,
Well, the options in front of you are to approve, disapprove, or you could defer.
okay, okay.
So the motion to defer. And with that, I would say have Public Works come to our meeting next month, and let's hear it.
And hash it out.
Yeah.
Do I have a second? Excuse
You
me?
want to get a second first, Mr. Chair, and then for discussion?
I'll make a second.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Well, you've got someone that wants to speak. I just wanted to make sure we had a motion with a second. If you want, you're the chair, you run the show, so.
Introduce yourself and.
Hi, my name is Justin Hardaway, represent Dreamfinders Homes. A year ago, we went through the process in here with those same concerns that you had. And it sounds like we're trying to put concerns that are currently a problem and put them on this subdivision here. So this subdivision's been through, we already had Public Works approval. After the Planning Commission meeting last year is reconciled, we lost it. Spent another year in engineering with Dorchester County, Wolpert, third party. The math works. 2 different engineers state that it works. Again, not saying anything about the crossing down the line. If there's an issue down there, I have no idea about that one. But the math works. And what we're doing is delaying this project further and further and further along, but the math isn't going to change any. Like, the flood is what the flood is, the elevations are what the elevations is, and it states that it works. And that's what I want to say.
All right, we have a motion on the table that's been seconded. Further discussion?
Yeah, I would just say that, given the concerns here, is 30 days a big deal? If we can come back next month with Public Works and talk about it, we've waited a year. And I would think
Right.
that's a reasonable request, and, again, I take the position that this is a lot better than multifamily for the town for the county of Dorchester.
Understood. Yeah, and it has been a year, and that's also a year with interest carry. There's a lot of money invested in engineering firms to engineer this, money invested with Dorchester County in order to do this. We still have the donation out there as well that we're giving to Dorchester County. There's a lot of upsides to this, and I understand that 30 days doesn't sound like a lot, but start adding the money up, and 30 days is a lot. I mean, when you're talking about millions of dollars, 30 days is a lot.
And we're also thinking about the viability of that project in the future too, after people are living there.
Yes, sir.
And that's one of our concerns.
No, I agree. I moved to Somerville in 84, or 85, sorry. It's been here my whole life, graduated Somerville High School. I fully understand that. But again, is there an opportunity to have a meeting outside of this meeting? If we just need to meet with Public Works, can we not set that up for, say, next week? Is that an option? I don't know if that's an option or not.
It's,
And again, my concern is, like I said from the beginning, by all legal aspects, which, again, wish somebody from legal was here, but they've met the requirements. There were significant concerns early on. While there still may be concerns, if the third-party consultant, which the county is paying to be their engineer, we have no.
Our county's paying that?
The county is paying for Wolpert to do the third-party review on the stormwater. So the third-party consultant has approved this as well. So, again, legally, they've met the requirements.
Yeah.
I also think that legally, we have a due diligence to the residents that already live there and not a due diligence to the developer. We represent the residents of Dorchester County. And our job is to make sure that we don't flood out 200 homes by putting in 48 homes or 43, whatever it is. And I think 30 days to do that due diligence, to make sure, to check with legal, to be able to ask those questions of our own Public Works Department to ensure that, I don't feel like that's too much to ask.
This is why I say I'm torn. Legally, they've met the requirement. But my experience has been when you're this close
Correct.
and you're in a situation where you know that the basin continues, the mean water elevation in the basin continues to rise over time, and that FEMA flood designations change over time, I wouldn't buy a house in here.
But you have Timber Trace on the right-hand side of it, you have Drayton Oaks on the left-hand side of it. Neither one of those subdivisions, roads are flooding.
Timber
Now, I know
Trace is up a hill.
I'm sorry?
Timber Trace is up a hill.
I don't know the elevation on it.
Yeah.
But you do have on that side of the, Each Hill Road, you have two other subdivisions. And this is basically bordering,
Yeah, it went way up the hill, probably a
and
good
there's
20,
not
25
issues there.
Yeah.
up the road.
Timber Trace is way up. Timber Trace has elevations from 17 at the lowest point to 58 at the highest point.
I think what is our lowest?
Finish. Well, 16 and a half from the roads up to 20 up in the cul-de-sac.
So
And
we're-
Timber
we're
Trace
close.
did flood the neighbors behind it, and there was an issue with Public Works. In the current Legend Oaks, when y'all built Timber Trace, they flooded all the yards in the current Legend Oaks. So we've been down this road, we've done this once already.
It sounds like there's a greater issue in there. We're not adding any additional water to that area. So the same amount of water that comes down in that 300 acres is going to be maintained in that 300 acres until it sheds off into the Ashley River. We're not putting more water in there. So we're actually controlling the water better and delaying it going down into it with the retention ponds.
You're putting structures, though, in a marginal area.
Correct. Yes, sir.
And that's
That-
my concern.
I wouldn't say a marginal area. We build on the beach every day of the week and still have houses up on the beach.
Yes, but the
So-
houses next to them are also at that same level, and the houses that we're talking about flooding are not, because they were built 15 years ago. And I will say that when Timber Trace was put in and when Drayton Oaks was put in, the club didn't have an issue with flooding back then. Since those two communities have come in, they have a significant issue with flooding. So we are compounding a problem that is already in existence.
Well, then I would venture and say, what is causing that issue? Do we have any, is there a tree that fell down that's blocking it up? Is some beavers back there? And I say this, but I mean, just,
I've walked it.
one
I
day
know.
we had traffic and next day we don't, and we blame it on somebody else, but it's really just not it.
So that's the problem with this whole county. We take each individual subdivision
Correct.
of and by itself.
Yes, sir.
We don't look at the whole picture.
Correct.
And that's what we need to start doing. We need to start looking at the whole picture. Now, I don't mean to pick on you. You just happen to be the one.
I'm here.
You
I
here.
understand.
But I don't like it, but I really think there's nothing we can do about it. But I'm afraid you're gonna have to wait 30 days till we get okay from our Public Works that they, or that we are confident enough with their opinion that we can go forward.
Again, I would love to entertain a meeting, not in this aspect, but in a meeting where we can actually sit down at a round table and really discuss it. I don't know if this is when we're going to get into engineering and flooding, and a lot of that stuff's over my head. I'm not an engineer by any means. That's why, we have.
The problem with a meeting like that is we won't be able to vote. I don't
Okay.
doubt, we won't,
I
you still
didn't
got
know.
30 days.
Okay, I get it.
I mean, you still got 30 days, so.
And
Okay.
that meeting still has to be open to the public too,
Yes.
correct?
Yes, it does.
Yep.
It's a workshop.
It'll be a workshop meeting.
notified 30 days in advance or 15 days in advance or whatever. So it's a problem. It's a process to get a specified meeting like that together with this group. So
Okay.
it's best to, and you still gonna have to wait
Understood.
for the vote.
My
Thank
biggest
you for
question is
clarifying
getting legal counsel.
We can get anybody here that you need to have,
Legal and Public Works.
yes.
We have a motion on the table to defer
And I'll second.
and a second,
And with that motion, it was to get Public Works
and legal.
come here and legal to come here,
Yes,
to make sure we understood that.
okay.
Understood.
Any further discussion from the commissioners?
Could we not do a workshop before our next commissioner meeting? Where, we have our commission meeting at 4, we do a workshop at 3 with legal and with Public Works, so that we can do that prior to?
You could.
Well, I'll amend my motion to include that.
Okay,
Is the second acceptable?
I'll second.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so Kara, you'll arrange to have Legal and
Yes.
Public Works at a 3 o'clock session?
Yes.
What would that date be, out of curiosity?
It would be May 13th, is that right?
I think I'm flying the day before, so I'll try to be back.
May 8th.
Well, May 8th? I will not be, I cannot be here May 8th. I'm out of the country.
If I gotta drive to Reesville.
Okay,
Okay, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, Mr. Chair, I am going to head out.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
you are excused. Carrying on. Bryant Alley, this is a street name request. Change from Beach Park Alley in Somerville. Any comments? Anybody? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Second? Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. Motion passes. New street name request for Legacy Farms, Audrey Lynn Lane and Side Saddle Way. Same thing here. Do I have a motion?
Motion approved.
I got a question.
Yes.
These names have been vetted through 911,
Yes, they have.
and they don't rhyme or,
No, there's no
Miss-
conflicts.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, usually 911 and also the post office.
Yeah, we run everything through our addressing coordinator who verifies with 911 and other jurisdictions.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like signs, ayes have it. Long Bear Drive, new right-of-way to be located off Embassy Drive, Somerville. Motion on that one.
Motion approved. Can we do the rest of them all together?
Yeah, let's do, we can do 2 and 3 together.
Yep. Second.
All in favor, signify by
Just
saying
a
aye.
second, I had a discussion. Some of these names, Frost Plume, Everplume, I'm just kind of curious, these are just, where do these come from?
Those are birds.
Velvet Finch.
The birds.
They're birds.
Well, they're not-
Shadowhawk is a
well,
bird.
Well, they're not low
Skyfoot is a
country
bird.
birds, I can tell you that.
Velvet Finch is a bird.
Anyway, never mind.
I can bring Peterson's bird book in the next meeting.
That would help.
Okay.
Golden quill.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like signs, the ayes have it. Old business, there is none. New business. I'm going to let you read this, Kara. It's
So,
yours.
yes, this is a county-initiated rezoning of multiple properties. I would like to note that TMS number 09800000031 is going to be excluded from this request. After discussing with the property owner, they are not utilizing that property as an industry.
Okay.
So with that, This is a request to rezone the following TMSs from AR to I. That's TMS 09800000009, 098000010, 098000032, 02600000057, and TMS 09800000011, 098000002, 230, 007 0000127, 007 0000230, 231, 232, and 233 from AR to CLI. So this is a county-initiated rezoning of multiple properties throughout the county that have existing industries established on them but are still zoned agricultural residential. Since the amendment to the ordinance 0413, which eliminated the absence of control district, with it, many of the conditional and special exception uses that could be allowed were eliminated. And so these industries have been operating as legal nonconforming. We've noticed that this causes issues, particularly when these industries come in and want to expand. They want to put new buildings, put new parking areas, and under their current AR zoning, they're not allowed to do that. And they would need to come in then and request to go from AR to either CLI or I, depending on the use that they're proposing. In an effort to prevent this sort of issue on the part of these legally operating industries, in collaboration with economic development, county is proposing to rezone these properties to either commercial, light industrial, or industrial to align with the existing uses on each property. All the properties have been analyzed to identify the established use and site characteristics against the comprehensive plan and have been found to align with the zoning district proposed. Property owners were notified via USPS. A public notice was also published in the newspaper as required by state law, and signs posted accordingly on each property. We did receive some feedback, mostly just general inquiries. I don't believe we received any positive or negative feedback, just general inquiries.
Okay. Was there any public comment?
Just general questions.
Okay. Is there anybody here that would like to speak for or against the motion, or not motion, the application? Commissioners, any questions?
Question. You might not can answer this, but is this going to affect their tax bill?
No. So these properties are being assessed as they're already operating. And so that the zoning will have no effect on the taxes. It will simply continue to be assessed based off the way it's being used.
So, for instance,
Again, this is just cleaning up a already existing use zoning, correct?
Essentially, yes.
yeah, for instance, if I had a printing plant in there and I wanted to expand the printing plant, right now I'd have to come in before I could bring my project forward, build a new building for an additional press. I'd have to get the zoning changed, and then after the zoning change, I could apply for a building permit. Now they can just, go through the building permit process.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Like signs, the ayes have it. Motion is approved. Okay, the next one is B, zoning text amendment 25-03, text amendment to Dorchester County Zoning and Land Development Standards Ordinance number 04-13 as previously amended with respect to Article 20, Section 20.7.3 drainage easements for the purpose of prohibiting stormwater easements on private lots and residential subdivisions. Who's going to handle this one?
Me again.
Okay.
This is a text amendment being initiated by the Public Works Department in coordination with Planning and Zoning to address the location of drainage easements. So right now, 0413 does not reference any particular requirements for the location of drainage easements and associated pond easements in residential developments, except for in the cluster subdivision ordinance, where drainage easements are expressly prohibited from being placed on private lots being created for sale. In reviewing subdivisions following build-out, both planning and public works staff have found that in residential subdivisions, where these drainage easements are placed on private lots, it causes a lot of issues, particularly when people erect fences or they pave patios and things that don't necessarily need permits and don't come to us. They get put into these drainage easements. It causes flooding. It causes issues even when it's a private drainage easement and the HOA is responsible for, keeping it clean. It still causes them issues. A lot of people will store personal items in this area, and it creates flooding. It can also lead to more maintenance for the county and also can lead to a reduction in yard space for private property owners. If you have a giant 20-foot drainage easement on your lot, you're not going to have room for your pool. In reviewing options to prevent these problems from occurring, planning and public works staff has developed this amendment to prohibit drainage easements and stormwater ponds from being placed on individual lots being created for sale, and requiring that they be placed on lots reserved as common open space or HOA area and dedicated accordingly to prevent the issues that can arise by placing them on private lots.
I got a question. Is this going to keep someone from having a ditch? I mean, it sounds like that. Probably isn't, but it sounds like that.
Do you remember
You mean-
last year, we had someone come, everybody had built the fence. It was a
Yeah,
neighborhood
I
off of
remember
Legend
that.
Oaks.
Yes.
And they came to get that easement.
Yes.
We couldn't give it to them. So now you're changing from the developer being able to put that easement through someone's property. They have to segregate it out, which then requires if there's a lot size minimum, they can't include part of that easement as the lot size minimum. So the homeowner actually gets more land that they can actually use.
This is for developers or private property owners, individual lot owners?
It's going to be more on the developer who are developing these major subdivisions, and they're coming in and they're placing drainage easements on.
Essentially, it's going to reduce their density.
Yeah.
So the question that I have is, what some municipalities also do is that they put on their final plat that a note that says, drainage easements, or if a drainage easement's located on property and no fences are allowed within the drainage easement. And if the county has to go in there and tear it up, it's at the homeowner's expense to replace, kind of thing. And they get recorded in the, covenants for the development. I would like to see something like that as opposed to, strictly keeping the easement completely within a HOA space or something like that.
That is certainly something that's already being done, and it's not working, is what we found.
Yeah.
Is the issue with the people getting upset about
It's
public
about,
works coming on the property and?
no, it's
tearing the
about
fence?
interruptions. So there are a lot of things that people do on their properties that don't necessarily require a permit. For example, paving something, grade level, or putting up a fence that's under, I think, 8 feet. Things like that don't require a permit, so it doesn't come to us. A lot of people don't realize that they have these drainage easements on their property.
Would that responsibility not fall on the HOAs at that point? For the review of any kind of improvements on their property?
Not all HOAs will do that, I think is the understanding.
Where the issue comes in is in the crafting of the covenants that the developer puts together when they develop the property. Okay, I'll take Coosaw Creek as an example. We have 605 homes, and we have 54 drainage easements. The drainage easements all run down the property line between two lots. And there is a 15-foot easement on either side of the property line.
So you lose half.
In our covenants, there is a restriction that the homeowner cannot do anything within that easement without approval of the HOA Architectural Review Board. And they can't put a fence in unless it's approved. They can't plant trees, they can plant shrubbery. If they're putting a pool in, the drainage cannot go into that drainage. and they can't put an impervious pad in the easement, so they can't get into the easements. But it has to be in the covenants that are crafted by the developer, and it has to be enforced by the HOA. I think what's happening in the county is that there's subdivisions that are going in where after the subdivision goes in, you know, we just don't know what happens. And that's where you get issues.
So would this be in a particular zone, or particular major subdivision, minor subdivision?
At this point, no, there's no restriction.
Well, I looked at our plat last night, because I actually had the drawings yesterday, and I took a look at our plats for our community, and we wouldn't have 605 lots developed. We'd have about 520 to 550 in that range, depending upon how you configured the lots,
That's good.
in the same acreage.
It's a good thing.
Significant impact.
It can be,
Yeah.
it depends. It's highly a function of the number of ponds you've got, the storage capacity of the ponds, and also your elevation changes. I mean, we have a situation where in 2,000 feet, we go from 37 feet to 12 feet. So as a result, we have a lot of drainages that go down property lines.
Well, and then we get into the issue of owning property
That you can't use.
comes with a certain amount of responsibility.
Yeah.
You're supposed to know what you can and can't do
Yeah,
on your property, and I just don't think it'll work very well in the rural area either. There's no HOAs in a minor subdivision. So it'd just be land left that gets sold at the tax sale.
yeah, it'll be on the front end. but-
Yeah, it
I
would.
mean, every home, when
Yeah,
you
I-
purchase a property, you get a plat, right? And the plat should have all of the easements on
Yeah, but
everything
nobody
on
reads
that.
that.
I mean,
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but there's gotta be some responsibility on the homeowner or the property owner to know what they're purchasing and what the requirements are, you know, therein, so.
And it's not the county's responsibility to take care of everybody.
Right.
They got certain responsibilities of their own.
It's just, I guess, at the end of the day, it would be imperative to be included within the covenants for the HOA, and that just being a checklist item.
Yeah, I think to Mr. Judy's point, I think when we were asked to look at this, it was more specifically for major subdivisions in this area, not necessarily minor subdivisions in the rural area. But in looking at the way it's drafted, it would apply. So maybe it's something we need to go back and talk a little bit more with Public Works about when, where, and how, you know, those larger lots, maybe in the rural areas, it might not be as much of an importance as within these 50 or 100 lot subdivisions where, I mean, I don't know that you would have too many in the rural areas. On larger lots, you're not going to have the stormwater ponds that you're going to have.
Yeah, but we still have drainage. I mean, we
Yeah,
still
you
have
do.
ditches between the lots and
You
stuff.
do.
Yeah, and, you know, there's nobody to own that extra land. It's
Right.
Somebody's got to own it.
Right, and that's not the intent, to have to carve out a piece of property, but generally, the ponds themselves within a neighborhood are on an HOA lot. They're
Yes.
not on the individual lot, so the stormwater easements going to that HOA-maintained ponds, you know, theoretically could be pulled out and kept on HOA properties. So it sounds like maybe this might be something we need to look at just a little bit more.
This is just
Something
for-
like an HOA or, you know, pond maintenance access from our existing right-of-way or something like that as well.
Yeah, although I think a lot of the intent was to remove it when you have a significant number of homes along, you know, if you're trying to get to a pipe that's in the back of 10 yards and you're having to clear out sheds and fences and whatever else people have in the backyards. I think that is a lot of the driving force behind this.
Well, it's the same thing with water and sewer easements or utility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, although generally those are a little bit more in the front yard, so hopefully you're not putting your shed in there, but,
Usually,
yeah.
usually utilities are between the curb and 30 feet of the curb.
right.
Some of them run down the back of the lots.
Some do. They do sometimes.
Some do, but most are in the front. Just this, maybe for my education, do you, or does anyone at the county level review the covenants that may be in and attached to a deed when a developer is developing a piece of property?
Not usually when it comes through us. They usually don't have it to that level yet. I can think of a few instances where we've, if not requested to review them, at least requested that they put certain wording in those documents.
Because like our covenants are 80 pages long.
Right.
They're really restrictive.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, again, final plat notes and the covenants,
So,
the drainage covenants.
do I have
I would just like to say an observation. You mentioned that Coosaw Creek had 605 lots,
yes?
but if this had been in place or something similar, it would only have maybe 500 lots.
520, 500, it depends on how you,
Right. And my concern of that is you just took some more density away.
Right.
Now, everybody, if you ask the public, they don't like density. But if you look at smart growth and you read up on it, density,
Density.
you either have density or sprawl. You're gonna get one or the other.
Yeah.
So when you start reducing, that's 100 people that are not gonna live in Coosaw.
yeah.
They're gonna live somewhere else.
And-
And here comes sprawl again. So I would just say be careful with what we're asking for.
Yeah,
I'm not saying, but I know it's a problem and we got to fix it, so don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying that the whole discussion of density versus sprawl seems to be forgotten, because people get in traffic and they get mad.
yeah.
Well,
And that number ended up the way it ended up, in large part because I tried to keep the average acreage the same.
I got you. Okay, we'll just make the lot smaller, but
I didn't try to make the lots
Well,
smaller. I tried to keep the acreage the same because we're looking at a minimum of 3,000 square foot lot, house size. So, you know,
Again, I lean towards the responsibility of the developer and the purchaser, you know, and the HOA at the end of the day, maintaining their covenants.
is the only concern then that we make it fair for the other part of the county that may not be as affected by it, like major subdivision, minor subdivisions? Or I mean, did you say you wanted to talk to Public Works again or not?
I think we want to have an additional discussion.
Okay.
Well, I can make a recommendation to defer it for an opportunity to discuss further.
do I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Yeah, and I think it's a good, I think we have to go somewhere with this. So I don't
Yeah.
think, but we can maybe get it, right size it a little better or something, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor? Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it, motion passes. Okay. Last item here, CIP Annual Project Priority List recommendation regarding list of priority CIP projects for the fiscal '26 budget. Kira, I believe this is yours.
Yeah, so this is new for you all to be looking at, although within the state enabling legislation, this is something that planning commissions are supposed to be doing as just one of your roles, is to be involved in capital improvement planning. I believe what the state enabling legislation says is that you will recommend to county council an annual listing of priority capital improvement projects. And this ties in ostensibly with comprehensive planning and making sure that we're enacting what our plan says that we should. So this year being the first, and this, we're coming in kind of well into the budget cycle. So what you received in your email, separate from your initial packet, is a priority listing of projects. And this is, as we work through our budget cycle, departments are asked to provide a list of requested projects for the upcoming year. Those then go to an internal committee that reviews those requests and just creates a priority ranking list. So that's what you have, is the priority ranking list that came out of the employee committee that then moves forward. So what we're envisioning is that these are the lists that would then come to planning commission that would then be recommended by you all to go to county council for consideration through their budget process. I think this will probably be refined or tweaked as we move forward in the next fiscal year and after that. But this is what we're getting our feet wet with this year, is this priority listing of projects and moving that forward to council for consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know that this is very new that we're just throwing at you right now.
I was going to ask, now, is this outside of, I mean, I noticed there are some water and sewer improvements. Does this include all of DCWS?
No,
or
so-
is this-
No, there are separate projects that they have, certainly transportation projects, everything that falls under that penny, that's separate, that's already funded. They're working on those, and a lot of the water and sewer projects fall within those as well. So these are more of like the general fund annual priority projects.
So this isn't a capital improvement list?
It is. This is part of the capital improvements plan.
And that's, so, last meeting, I think I asked about sewer in this county. And maybe we could get updated on it again.
Yeah, bringing Larry in.
And yet, here we are. And I'm sure many people got turned down in the last 30 days trying to get a project done because they can't get a yes answer. My office many times writes emails to public or sewer people. And, they're very pleasant and they respond, but they basically say it's not available. And so it's a little frustrating, so I'm trying to understand. I know we have a capacity issue at some points because you've promised capacity to others. I see Mr. Ackerman shaking his head yes. And this is an old thing. This is not something new. This has been going on for years and years and years. And I guess at some point, I know there's a plan, from what I hear, to take the one down there at River Oaks, I think, and improve that plant. But then up towards Burt's Way, I don't know if there's anything planned for up that way. I know they've got the St. George system. I don't know if there's much else going up there, but there's industry going up there. There's people wanting to move in that area. And I'm just wondering if there's anything about capital improvements to discuss. Maybe a new sewer plant up there, or maybe buying sewer from Berkeley County. I mean, what are we gonna do, or are we just gonna tell people don't go there? I mean, I'm just trying to understand what the vision of the county is.
Yeah. And we can have Larry come in and further address that, but I do know that they're upgrading the lower wastewater treatment plant to, I believe, a 16 MGD capacity.
Right.
They don't have plans, but they are looking into the potential for expanding the upper wastewater county treatment facility, just to see, what would be entailed with that. And then the county does have property and a discharge permit in place for a central wastewater treatment plant. But that's a number of years off before we get into
Somewhere in the
design and
central part
engineering.
of the county, like, where would
Pine
that?
Hill Business Campus, it was part of the East Edisto property.
which needs to be considered, or they need to be thinking about how to do that now as far as the financial side, because it's something that's definitely needed. I know, but the limiting factor, unfortunately, is also our discharges into the Ashley, into the
River.
Edisto.
You can't
right?
keep going in the Ashley River, from what I understand. So
Well, there's-
no-
yeah.
More questions than answers on all that. I just, I'm not in the know, but I'd like to.
Right.
We are the planning commission, so maybe we'd like to know.
Yeah, we'll see what we can
Got a
do to
lot of
get
issues
Larry
with
in here. If you want, well, if we're gonna do the workshop before the next meeting, then we could have Larry attend the next meeting without it
Yeah.
dragging on too long.
Or even a councilman or two that's maybe in the, in the throes of it, that are dealing with it, Somebody from the plan and development, somebody like that, I don't know.
Bunch of issues with that.
Would love to know.
Again, I saw the water and sewer improvements, and I was just curious why those were not somebody else's responsibility, so.
Well, any further, do I have a motion to approve the list?
I have no problem with the list.
I have no problem with it.
you know.
I don't think we got a choice, do we?
I make a motion to approve.
All in favor?
Yeah, all the employees will quit if we don't approve.
You'll have a whole new group up here next week, or next month.
Let's see. I have no, let's see, who's next on the agenda? I have no report.
I do not either.
And is there any comment from the public? Hearing none.
I got something.
You got some?
Yeah.
Go for it.
I don't want to, I'd hope that the planning folks, Tiffany and the GIS folks, Lindsay, don't take this the wrong way, but we got to speed up the plat approval process. And I know they lost an employee, and I just beg the county to fill that as soon as possible because it's getting bottlenecked.
Yeah. Yep,
Thank you.
heard, yes.
Is this the time we can register complaints? Can I put something up? I'm all good.
They doing a good job. I didn't like that approval process to start with, but I love it now.
Yeah,
It gives me, I think all of us have grown accustomed, all of us surveyors have grown accustomed to it, and we okay with it. We just need to speed it up.
yeah, understood.
And we did get an approval, working on something for a long time, but the engineers came in and they had to get Dorchester stormwater and North Charleston stormwater, and between the two, it was very complicated, but, you know, I give the county kudos. The county did their part and got it done and got it approved, so, thank you.
There's only one thing left on the agenda to do. Motion
I
to,
make a motion to adjourn.
all in favor? Vote with your
Aye.
feet.
There you go.
Thank you.